So relationships. Relationships can either make, break, or destroy who you are. And by that, I mean it's fairly simple. It can either make or break or destroy who you are. Um, the last relationship I had was very complicated at the very tail end of it. Uh, they were under the impression that I had basically cheated on them, and I never once did. Uh, which was kind of this whole situation of basically what do I do with my life? When do I go about making the right decision? You know, are they the one? Are they not the one? And it was just this whole ordeal that I ultimately liked, but I didn't like. Um, I know for myself and the relationships that I've had with people, that relationship kind of made all the people that I know uncomfortable, and they're just like, she's not a good person, and all this and all that. But at the same time, it's like, well, you don't know her. You know, you never even met her. You know, you can't judge somebody that you've never met. Like, that's, you know, it's not right to essentially judge someone that you've never met. And so, you know, like, if you judge someone you've never met, then why? You know, you have no right or obligation to judge, is basically what I'm getting at. Because the situation is, let's say that you ultimately judge someone, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, well, you can't judge me. Or you can't judge them because you don't know them. You don't know their backstory. You don't know who they are. You never even met them, for crying out loud. And that is true in all cases. Because here's the situation that occurs, okay? Let's say that I were to judge somebody that I've never met, which I don't, because I have no obligation to do that. It makes me look bad. And if you go and judge somebody that you've never met, it makes you look bad. I can tell you that one of the relationships that I had before the last relationship that I was 100% committed to, it ended on a very, very bad note. I was accused of something that I would have never done. And, you know, it was this thing that, you know, everybody that knows me on a well and very personal level knows that I'm not that type of person to do that. I'm not just about to publicly call out what I was accused of doing, only because that is a very, very personal thing in that capacity.
Excuse me.
And when you get accused of something like that, it makes you question everything. So, I was raised in a very particular way, and by that I mean I was raised in a Christian home, and I was raised to ultimately be a Christian and worship a God of sorts, and, you know, praise Him in all His might and glory. But, you know, in the long haul of things, I think the biggest thing is that you have to succumb to the conclusion of, hey, you know, what do I do here? How do I do this? Where is it that I go from here? And, you know, who am I supposed to be? I don't really think that you can call out any of those, because, you know, the only person you can really judge is yourself. Alright. Um, I know for myself, I don't really judge myself that often because I don't think anything I do is judge worthy. But that's just my that's just my view of it. Um, and when it comes down to the whole conclusion of do you judge somebody versus do you not judge somebody, it differs. Like the line differs very, very heavily. And by that I mean you have to basically pause and think and realize the major difference between who you are and who they are. Because the situation that occurs is you end up having this situation, where people are going to be looking at you and they're going to say, oh, well, why is it that you can go and judge them, but, they can't judge you? And that's the major difference that you have to take into account, is that you're judging them for potentially something that you're doing. I can tell you off of my own personal hand, the last relationship I had, I was accused of cheating. That's not who I am. Everybody that knows me on a personal level knows that that's not something that I do. And eventually she came to the realization that I didn't ever once cheat, and that's the major difference between it. Is you have to kind of like come to the realization that if you're gonna say that you cheated on someone, then you might not fully be the one that can judge. And if you're gonna judge somebody for cheating, take a step back and look at everything that they've done beforehand and everything that they were doing afterward and everything they were doing in between. I know for myself, when she finally came to that realization, she decided to be with somebody else, and I'm not judging her in any capacity, because I have no right to judge her. In the matter of whether or not, like if somebody were to ask me if I'd take her back, if she gave me that, if she were to come back and want to be with me again, and somebody were to ask, I'd take her back in a heartbeat. I'm just gonna be 100% honest, and that's the difference between me and a lot of other people. Is I know what I've wanted, and I know what I need, and I know where I belong in my life, and not a lot of other people do. And when it comes to that, you kind of have to stop, think, and realize the difference between yourself and others. I remember when I was growing up, one of the relationships that I had, it was more of a friendship. He and I were close enough to where we could finish each other's sentences, and we already knew what each other were thinking, and that was a relationship. That was a very, very strong relationship in my mind, because I have not had a single relationship like that with anyone, and that kind of a relationship doesn't come that often, from my experience. And when it comes down to that kind of relationship, you gotta kind of stop and think and bring into the equation of how you two have that relationship, how you've built that relationship, where it started and where it's at the current moment in time, and where you think it's going to end. ironically enough, that that individual and I, we both went into the military. Ironically enough, they went Army National Guard. I went active duty Air Force. I am now enlisted with the Army, or at least in the process of getting enlisted fully with the Army. But I wouldn't change
Thank you.
any relationship that I've had, only because the difference between me and the relationships that I've had is they've built me into who I am today. Growing up, I was never really happy with anything, and over the course of the past year, with the exception of this past month and a half, I've been just about happier than I've ever been able to recollect. And just, if you say that, it kind of shows that, there's not much that makes you happy. And the reason I was that happy was because of the last relationship that I was in. And, if you have that kind of relationship, you kind of have to stop and think, okay, maybe, this relationship is what's best for me. Or, maybe you have to stop and think, okay, maybe this relationship wasn't best for me, but it was what was best for me at the time. I can tell you, out of every relationship that I was in prior to this relationship, I was never happy. Never once happy. And in this relationship, I was happier than I could have ever imagined being. And that's the difference between me and a lot of other people, is I realize what makes me happy and I realize what doesn't make me happy. And the reason why I would take her back in a heartbeat is simply because she's what made me happy. And having that kind of relationship is a rare case, from what I have seen, as well as what I can tell. So I think it really matters on where you are in your life and where you want to be for the rest of your life, and who you want to be with, and who you can see yourself settling down in life with. I know for her, I'd take her back in a heartbeat, but it would take time to rebuild what she and I had, if not building something better. Building something better than what we had, it's going to take way more time than building what we used to have, because it took us nearly a year to build what we had, and then it took a year of actually consistently being basically together to have that relationship.